Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Today we are joining Pandit Satish Kumar Sharma. Pandit ji, welcome to PGurus channel.
Ramji, namaskar. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you again, Iyer ji.
Pandit ji had just returned back to the United Kingdom after a visit of India. He was at the Pravasi Bharatiya Diwas (PVD) and at the Ardh Kumbh. And to share us his experiences, Pandit Satish Kumar Sharma ji, please tell us how long were you in India on this recent trip of yours, and how did you find these two events?
Oh, wonderful. It's a great opportunity to speak about these events. We've been hearing a lot of media coverage about the events, the anticipated problems, some of the solutions, the ambition of the Chief Minister in delivering the Kumbh, and also the PBD event, which was an extraordinary achievement. So very happy to share some of our reflections and our experiences on this. Firstly, I'd just like to mention one thing, and that is that the logistics is something that in the past, often people from the diaspora, we struggle with. So it's not uncommon to have expressions of frustration that we didn't know where to go, or we didn't know which train to catch, and where our tickets, etc., etc. And I have to say that for the PBD and for the arrangements that the Chief Minister Yogi made for the delegates to go to the Kumbh were beyond criticism. There is absolutely no flaw that we could find which hadn't already been thought of. The manner in which they shepherded, educated, guided, nurtured, maintained, and also fed and clothed and sheltered us for the duration was beyond expectations. Even before we left from here, I had made arrangements with the PIOCCI, which is an international organization. They were handling some of the logistics, and I was absolutely delighted to get a WhatsApp number for a person who was going to be responsible for our group out there in Varanasi and in the Kumbh. And there were a number of occasions where I needed to make an inquiry just to confirm that paperwork had been received, and they were available at the end of a WhatsApp call throughout the duration. Now that was a wonderful, wonderful feeling that actually there is somebody here who knows the intimate details of what's going to happen and where it's going to happen, and you could just contact them and be assured of a call back. So the biggest fear of entering into a 2-week odyssey and not really knowing what was going to be available, and being at the disposal of somebody else's itinerary, that was dispelled right at the outset. So the logistics, peerless. Very, very happy with the manner in which all of that was handled.
So the Pravasi Bharatiya Diwas was held in Varanasi, and how long were you there? Were you there for the entire duration of the event? When did you reach there? Maybe you can walk us through your trip.
Perfect. So firstly, I was on a bit of a father and son pilgrimage as well. So I have a 26-year-old son who he was born in the UK, has got a good connection with India and our traditional roots, as you'd expect from a father who is a bit of a scholar in these matters. But he's been there many times as well. But I didn't think that I would feel comfortable in sending a person of his background and understanding on his own. Now, having come back, I'm absolutely confident that if the next Kumbh and the next PBD is handled as efficiently, youngsters from the diaspora, university students, people who've not been there, perhaps even members who are outside of the diaspora for the Kumbh, I think they could comfortably attend the Kumbh Mela event without being in need of a chaperone. It was that well done. So we were there for the full 6 days duration of the PBD, and the task was to arrive in New Delhi, and then from New Delhi make our own way to Varanasi. And we managed to do all of our bookings over the internet, as one does these days. And when we arrived at Varanasi on one of those glorious sleeper trains where we fell asleep in Delhi and woke up in Varanasi, we were met at the gate. There was a group who were receiving each and every person who was arriving, and there were vehicles ready to take us to our hotels and make sure that we got there safely and that we had sustenance and refreshments. They gave us our programs, they gave us the itineraries, And right the way through, pretty much the support structure was as efficient and as effective.
No.
So the 6 days, sorry, you were saying?
So this almost reminds me of, going to Las Vegas for like Comdex and Consumer Expo, where 100,000 people show up and things sort of move like clockwork. And Las Vegas is used to hosting programs of this magnitude. In fact, the city is built for conventions. To take something like this, transplant it into a small town, Varanasi wouldn't be, I would say, probably a tier B town or tier 3 town. And it's truly amazing. So kindly continue.
Sure. And Varanasi is somewhere I've visited before. And I visited, I think my last visit was about 6 years ago. The transformation in Varanasi since my last visit and this visit is chalk and cheese. It's a totally different place. So one of the key things, you mentioned it was a tier 2 and a tier 3 city. One of the things that really touched us was that it seemed as though the whole population of Varanasi had already been co-opted into looking after all of the delegates who were coming for the PBD. I recall one instance where at a dinner event, imagine having 4,000 people all in one large auditorium going for dinners. There were going to be one or two little moments of concern, but I recall one instance where somebody pushed in front of my son, and my son, being a true Brit, expressed his outrage that this was not how British people do things. We're known for queuing. And there was a lady who was standing in front of him, and she very gently spoke to the person in front and said, "No, this is not right. Please go to the back." And then she turned to, when my son thanked her, she turned to him and she said, "बेटे अगर आप लोगों में दिल में ना कोई चोट लगी हो या आप नाराज होके जाएंगे तो हमारे दिल पर क्या बीतेगा?" And so she was so affectionate and supportive and welcoming, and it really touched him. And I think this was something that we saw at so many instances. The people of Varanasi, they were very much proud that this was being held there, and really had bought into the idea that we were going to deliver a wonderful, wonderful experience for everybody who has come. And so for 8,000 people to be hosted by a town like Varanasi, I think that was a real plus. It was an incredible achievement of Yogi ji's administration and the people of Varanasi. We were really, really moved by those displays, and very much made humble by the welcome that we felt on occasion was too much, almost embarrassing on a number of occasions. But that was a wonderful dimension.
Now,
Varanasi logistically is a difficult place to organize something like this. I think everybody knows about Varanasi's ghats and galiyan, and it's a very, very ancient city, the oldest city on the planet. And yet, because everybody was so keen to make this a success, it was the ideal place for hosting this.
Now, viewers, this event came and went. MSM hardly breathed a word of it. And if anything, whenever they have to write about Yogi Adityanath ji's performance, it's usually something which is more derisive, more critical. I'm almost seeing, MSM treat Yogi Adityanath ji very similar to what they did, Narendra Modi maybe 15, 20 years ago. I mean, the resemblance is uncanny. And I want viewers to understand that I've been trying to get Pandit ji to give this hangout for a few days. And unfortunately, he was in between. He was traveling back to to the United Kingdom. So somehow it didn't happen. So I apologize for not coming sooner with this news segment. But, it's amazing that, an event of this magnitude and such a great coverage hardly found any mention in MSM. So Pandit ji, please continue with your journey.
It's true. One thing that we detected both in Varanasi with the PBD and at the Kumbh was almost a casual degree of confidence that this is an event we can comfortably hold. On occasion in the past, I've seen a degree of frustration, a degree of trepidation, a degree of worry, and that communicates when you're visiting an event. But there was none of that. It really was as though this had been planned to a very high degree of effectiveness and efficiency, and that delivering it wasn't something that was going to be too difficult. Now, I can understand that Yogi ji, who's taken on the responsibility of the Kumbh for 150 million people over the duration of the Kumbh, his team probably approached the PBD and said, yeah, well, this is small fry, 7,000 NRIs and diaspora visitors. We can do this very comfortably. And that was apparent in the events, in the catering, in the logistics and the transportation. That confidence was very, very encouraging. And I think that confidence became the platform whereby the outreach to the diaspora became so effective. There was a wonderful performance led by Hema Maliniji to characterize the history of the Ganga, and from its past and also its current challenges and the future. And it was delivered beautifully. It was almost reminiscent of Cirque du Soleil in terms of its use of light and sound, but it connected in that uniquely Indian manner where people were emotionally moved by the needs of the Ganga and the desire to engage with the problems of pollution and water conservation and preservation. So that was just an example of the manner in which not only did they deliver a wonderful event, but they actually achieved the objectives of connecting with people emotionally. And that's only possible when you have a degree of confidence that, yes, this is not beyond us. That was palpable and wonderful to experience.
That's awesome. So now let's move on to the Ardh Kumbh. So please continue.
So as I mentioned, I've been to the Kumbh before, and that was also in Prayag. This time we went to the same Kumbh, but shall we say, the last one was a 3-star Kumbh, whereas this was a 5-star Kumbh. And at this particular Kumbh, there were facilities for all ranges of experience seekers, shall we say. So we had the whole panoply of all of the akhadas with their encampments, all of the spiritual leaders of various denominations and sects, all with their tents and their huge, huge discourses going on, and that was absolutely wonderful. But the mechanisms for going in and out and being able to have darshan, also being able to do the Ashnan, those were remarkably catered for. I think on the day that we bathed there were, let's have a look. Actually, you've just reminded me of a phenomenal achievement. When they took the delegates from Varanasi to Prayag for the Kumbh, there were 84 coaches traveling in a convoy across UP. And wow. Can you imagine taking 84 coaches across? And they did it with unbelievable ease. There were police outriders, there were military escorts. We had our own liaison officer on our own coach. And right the way through, they delivered that gathering of some 4,000 visitors to the Kumbh without any hiccups at all. And so when we arrived at the Kumbh, everybody was fresh and we had a lovely reception. And we had the opportunity then to just settle in and immerse ourselves. Wonderful. They'd created a tent city, as I'm sure you've seen. And the weather was very good for everybody. And so the logistics became background. They became not part of the experience. You could take them for granted because they were so well looked after. The number of hospitals, the number of policemen, the number of sanitary facilities was in excess of what was needed. And so you didn't have to be worried about those. It gave us the opportunity to focus on the issues which were at hand. And that was to savor the unique atmosphere of a Kumbh gathering.
And there has been a lot of effort on part of the government to clean up the Ganga. How was your experience? I mean, whether be it Varanasi or Prayag?
Well, we bathed at both. Now, in Prayag, where so many people are bathing, the water was sandy, but it was like taking a trip to Margate Beach or taking a trip down to Brighton. The water was pristine, it was clean, it was really, really encouraging. We were very, very happy. And other people who had concerns about bathing in the Ganga from what they had read and what they had heard, once they saw the ease with which everybody was doing it and how clean the water actually was, those reservations just evaporated like mist and everybody was bathing very, very comfortably. So the hygiene issue, absolutely no concerns whatsoever, and significant improvements over the arrangements when I was last at the Kumbh. At the last Kumbh, we bathed right in the Triveni, but we decided to take a boat and go right out into the middle and do our Ishnan right in the meeting point, the confluence of the rivers, which was also coincidentally a very clean place to do it in. But this time, everybody was bathing with complete no concern for welfare. And so that was, again, an incredible achievement.
I'm transported back 40 odd years when I, as a teen, learned how to row a boat because I remember taking the exact same trip to the Triveni Sangam. And the
Okay.
boatman actually taught me how to paddle. I had sore hands for the next 4 or 5 days, but it was one of those, enthusiasm of a, just turned teenager to row a boat. The entire family sat and I did this. And the water was very clean. This was, of course, in the 70s and it was a long time ago. But you brought back memories of a very, very fond experience of mine. Thank you very much.
I believe, in fact, that Varanasi is on the cusp of becoming one of the cities which is totally non-polluting of the Ganga very, very shortly. So they have had lots of cleaning programs underway, and very soon there'll be no effluents actually being dumped into the Ganga without being processed first. And so that's, again, an indication of how remarkable the turnaround has been. So,
go ahead, please continue.
I was just going to say there's the tourist dimension, and there were many people who were on our journey who were actually there as tourists, who were part of the PBD, and maybe this was a bit of an add-on. But one of my concerns was whether it would satisfy and communicate the incredible spiritual event that was going on, and I was so relieved that it actually achieved that as well. For those who've never been to a Kumbh, it's worth remembering that, Varanasi is the city of Shiva, and the Kumbh is a celebration of consciousness in its primordial, simplest and most basic forms. And if you go to the Kumbh as a yatra, then you should come back feeling as though a burden has been lightened, has been removed from you. And one thing I noticed at the Kumbh is that there were so many people who were not of an Indian origin. There were many Europeans, there were many white people there, and the vast majority of them were grinning like children. And it's lovely to see that people who have grown up in a different culture, they too were becoming lightened of a burden. And we're actually settling into that, we say Sanatana Dharma is about harmony, it's about a harmonious state of being and a harmonious state of existence. And it was lovely to see that that was happening with so many people. And that's really what the Kumbh is all about. It's the being lifted of the weight and burden of an identity. So that was a really lovely achievement.
Now, anytime there is an event of this magnitude, there's always concerns expressed about, this is a ground ripe for proselytization or conversion. What was your experience on this trip of yours?
Well, it's quite remarkable and actually very, very pleasant. I think proselytizers should be sent to the Kumbh, okay, purely and solely, so that they can get a comparison of how petty and poor their product offering is, because that's what it is. It's a product offering. And some of the more medieval and relatively adolescent thought forms are built on a success based on divide and rule, on saying to humanity, no, you're better, you're worse, and trying to create some sort of a friction point so that then power can be acquired, control can be acquired. And the Kumbh is, participating in the Kumbh is almost like a Nirvana Shatkam practice, which is saying you're not the body, you're not the mind, you're not your thoughts, you're not your identity, you're beyond religion. All of those things are very much almost tangible in the Kumbh. And so for proselytizers to go there, I think would be a wonderful thing, but I'm comfortable and confident that they would be so far out of their depth. And more than anything, who knows, if they bathed, perhaps they too would also shed this burden, this problematical burden that humanity has been plagued with of religious identity. So more than welcome. I think we should have more and more of them invited. There was that sense of confidence that I mentioned. That was very much present at the Kumbh as well. It was like a comfortable settlement of self-awareness, which is saying to people, okay, you can come, you can criticize, you can do what you wish. And as I'm sure you're aware, Harvard has been invited to do some sort of a study. And in the past, I think everybody would have been really concerned about what is it that Harvard may come up with? Will they critique it? Will they find flaws? Whereas I think now it's matured to, well, let them come. We know that they have never held a 150 million people event. We do it regularly. We can deliver this event. And until they can actually match us and exceed us, whatever criticisms they may have, we can shrug off, because they deserve to be shrugged off. That was also very much present in the manner in which it was comfortably delivered. And so, yes, I think India is ready to invite all and sundry, even the naysayers, even those who make a living out of finding fault, and shrug them off without being too concerned.
And I'm hoping that just like India gave, or I should say Bharatavarsha gave yoga to the world, that India would also give the founding principles of Sanatana Dharma, Sarva Dharma Samabhava, to the whole world. There is no religion here. There is no God. You can pray whoever you want. There is even provision for Bhakti Yoga, which is personal God. And, it's an open architecture. The beauty of this eternal flow is something that needs to be seen, read, and experienced. And I'm hoping that, and I'm very confident that Pandit Satish Kumar Sharma ji, with his efforts in the United Kingdom and a little bit of things that we are doing in the United States, working with the California Board of Education to try and get this point across, so they educate the younger minds of the greatness and the fulfillment you get from understanding this eternal flow. I hope this message carries across. So thank you very much.
It's happening. Actually, if I can share one other thing I noticed, and that is there's a global process of decolonization going on. In all of the indigenous civilizations, people are getting rid of the concepts and the vocabulary that was used by colonizers to try and imprison their ideologies, their traditions, and everything else. And I think we're getting to the stage now where Hindus themselves are beginning to recognize that Hindu is not a suitable label for something as small as religion. Hindu is a civilizational idea. It's an idea in which human beings can actually exist and thrive and flourish on this earth, which is so much bigger than something as paltry and as two-dimensional as this thing called religion. And as that's being discarded, I think we're going to see that the word civilization is a process. It means the process of becoming civil. And that the ideologies that are part of this Hindu civilizational ethos are actually broadcasting this message, that if you adopt this civilizational mode, forget this nonsense about religious adherence and allegiances. If you adopt this civilizational mode, humanity becomes more civil. And that was unbelievably reflected at the Kumbh. 150 million people, some praying to Ram, some praying to Krishnaji, some praying to Hanumanji, and no friction between any of them because of this civilized approach to divinity, this respect for each other as a being in this incredible global journey that we're all on. So yes, I'm really, really enlightened and energized by this visit to the Kumbh. And I'd just like to share one word of gratitude, both with the Yogi ji and his organization. It was unbelievably effective, precise, and deeply, deeply moving. The youngsters who came, I know they felt an emotional attachment, both with the Kumbh and also with Varanasi. And so that was an achievement. And also to the MEA for the wonderful organization for the Pravasi Diwas. That too exceeded, I think, all of their expectations. And so I'd just like to acknowledge their incredible achievement and look forward to being part of it in future PBDs and future Kumbh visits.
Thank you very much, Pandit Satish Kumar Sharma ji. Namaskar, and we will be back with more such discussions. It's always a pleasure to have you on our channel.
The honor and pleasure is mine. I look forward to our next one, and best wishes for your trip in New Delhi.
Thank you very much.